Evening, everyone. This is Walk on Water live broadcast. One more time. Volume 2 is the target here. And we're going to go into some jurisdictional stuff and try to explain this in a little bit more greater detail so we can get a better understanding of what we're meaning by walk on water and why it's important for everyone to grasp this concept. It's not anything new. It's an old concept that we're trying to rebirth and get back into our lives so we understand ourselves in a much more complex way than what we've been led to believe is important. I'd like to welcome once again my second intelligent mind for the now, Carter from Texas. Thanks for coming, Carter. Once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be on. I'm looking forward to having some good discussions on whatever it is, that we think that people should know, and the things that, that you and I have we're on the same kind of wavelength. We're trying to learn and gain more knowledge about these things, and there's all these connections, and it's like everything really overlaps with each other. And thanks for having me, Dave.
Excellent. I'd like to kind of start things off with a basic, again, a clarification on one of the aspects of ourselves. And I know me and Carter have had this discussion, and I have several other communique to kind of mainly explain ourselves in the jurisdictional sense. And why that's so important. The concept being is that most everybody has been conditioned to see themselves just in a I call it a one or two dimensional world, or in a one or two dimensional life. When in reality, there's a whole other complex way of looking at yourself that needs to be there so you can see yourself as a living human being and what that really means. Now, the system has diverted our attention by, obvious means in many, many different ways, fragmented our attention into different elements that are more exciting on appearance, but in importance are absolutely of no importance to us whatsoever. Elements of some of them are, but most of them are not. So, without further ado, Carter, did you have anything else to say or anything before we kind of get rolling on this whole jurisdictional and move on to? After that, what I'd like to do is move on to some current event discussions. Anything you'd like to bring up, because you have some great stuff that you like to talk about. And then hopefully a little bit of a future concept is I'd like to try to get these where I know how to do them better, and two, what I mean by these is the broadcast, and two, I'd like to start having it where it's live and we can invite people in, and I know enough about what I'm doing so I don't look totally off whack. Carter, is there anything else you'd like to discuss?
Yes, what I'd like to say is that what I'm here to kind of contribute, and what my thing is to, what my thing to bring to the table is kind of just the research that I've been doing for a little while now. So, and that is anything really regarding the Illuminati or consciousness or reality, different ideas of philosophy and science and religion. And I'm still trying to search through all the information. So I'm on my own path, and I'm just here to present information so that we can try and get together and make sense of it all. And I think that this is part of what people are doing to take action, and that this is this what I like to compare it to is like we're at the beginning of whenever before Bitcoin exploded. That's what
Right.
we're doing right now.
Right. Right. Absolutely. As far as it's coming into, um, you
And
know,
I just want to
the
clarify.
the
I don't want to, and I don't know if what the agenda is of Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies and what's going to happen with that. But
right.
I'm just trying to make that analogy connection. I think that we're kind
An
of
explosion. Right.
making a mission for ourselves, you know, and we're on this quest for knowledge.
Right. Right. And a global thing. I mean, it's not. It's an explosion in awareness, bro, and we're well underway. And the way to tell that we're well underway is just in the past. I mean, honestly, in the past 12 months since Trump came in and started running, and the whole split, only um, exposing the whole system and the Democratic side, if we look at it from party differences, and also splitting the Republican Party. I'd say fracturing, just almost utter destruction of the Republican Party. But our political paradigm has been tipped over. And with that came a people that have been awake on many different subjects, because it's all about complex thinking. That's all it is. And it can be complex thinking about just a director in a play is a complex thinker because he's got to uh, put this artistic expression so it can be viewed and understood from the audience perspective, right? So just in that function, you have complex thinking. And the general population, they don't have much stuff that actually stimulates that little nerve or tickles that nerve for inquisitiveness, right? We're kind of built to follow repetitive systems, behaving in a certain way, doing a certain thing at a job over and over again, coming home, same schedule every week. All that stuff is is a process of conditioning us to um, put all our energies into extracurricular activities when we're away from work, which are more, drinking, going out to bars, going to concerts, going to plays or whatever, and not concentrating on, ourselves in a deeper meaning. But with this whole awakening is coming all this, right? We're starting to really, as a collective, coming from all different aspects of, Agenda 21, the Illuminati, the secret societies in general, the occulted knowledge, all these things, environmentalist stuff, food, GMO areas, Monsanto, all these fragmented ideas are all talking about the same thing. Separated, but they're not. They're all part of the same system. So we're all learning and waking up in a massive number. And it's only escalating, it's not slowing down. And it's going to be a world changed to right side up. And it might not be my lifetime, but it'll be darn close, I'm telling you, where we'll be able to start shifting this. The consciousness is not just an energy field, it's something that's being expressed easier and more easier. No matter what they've been doing to us, we're getting it out, and it's happening. It's a big thing. It's an Armageddon for them. It's not an Armageddon for us. That's the best way I can put it. But anyway, let's without going on too much of a tangent, let's go on to my primary function. To this has always been, into my project, my book, that I've got the digital stuff done, 2 volumes, working on number 3. Then I'll have a completed book. Then I'm gonna hone that down, and then add some other stuff to it, and then I'll have a paperback book, and that'll be available. The digital stuff is on Amazon, but I'll have the links below. So let's go over jurisdiction. All right, and jurisdiction is something that you hear all the time. You've seen it on cops, or you've seen it on, you've heard it talked about in many different ways. But I don't think many people, in fact, I know many people have not actually have any clue what that really means and how it impacts them in any way, shape, or form. And that is why that's basically important. Just to give you a little snapshot, is when a what they like to call themselves police officer shows up at your front door, knocks on your front door, you open the door, you have to know your jurisdiction. You have to know their lawful place compared to your lawful place of standing, right? So if you don't, you can have, and let's say if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to hide. Well, I call foul because anything can be construed as being wrong or suspicious of being wrong. And if you don't know your jurisdiction, you don't know your power there, then you're going to end up being victimized by a system that, quite frankly, doesn't want you to know, right? Because then you're no longer a victim, you know? So we have to understand this. And it's a very basic fundamental principle of ourselves that we should have learned as children. But again, our parents didn't know, and their parents didn't know. It was the parents before them had a basic idea. Parents before them knew damn well what was going on. Okay? So we need to get ourselves back to that, to where, just like our founders, and I'm a big advocate on our founding documents and our founders, because I'm going to go over my concept on that, on how that's been a little bit skewed and people tend to buy into it a little bit. I'd like to kind of address some of that. But without it further, I'm going to use a woman out of Alaska. Her name's Anna Von Ritz. She refers to herself as Judge Anna Von Ritz. She's a common law judge in the Alaskan jurisdiction, okay? I'm going to use her stuff because she explains this as simply as you possibly can get. And then with that, it always, as with anything, it's not illegal advice. We're not here to try to be anything that we're not. We're just normal men and women, or man and whole as a whole, trying to get back to knowledge of ourselves. Okay, so again, this is Anna Von Ritz. I'll have her link down below, and you should be able to see it on the screen. And again, it's my first time doing it, so it might be shoddy here and there. But again, you don't ever believe it, or not, I don't want to say believe, but you don't ever go into something just completely blindly, right? It's an introduction. You plant the seed, and then the idea for yourself as your own gardener of your own mind is to water that seed and see if it actually produces fruit, okay? Or if it produces nothing but lies and thorns and thistles, okay? So in the gardens of our minds, we have to understand that everything has to be referenced, and you want to go back and have many sources. Her book that I'm a proud owner of, and it's a great book. It's a great read for anybody, and it breaks it down in a very simple form. And I'll have a link for this at the bottom as well. And it's a very important title. You know something is wrong when an American affidavit of probable cause. Okay. Now, most people hearing that, okay, great. It's a great name of the book, maybe, right? But I'm going to explain to you as we go through this is why that book is very important, and why the term probable cause and affidavit of probable cause, why that's so important. We'll go into that later. To start it off, let's go with the that's the take notice side. We're going to go with this article where she explains beautifully, right? I can't emphasize it enough how great she puts this stuff together in easy and understand format. And again, any questions and stuff, comments on YouTube. I'm on Facebook as well, which I'll go over that here in a little bit, and there'll be links. This is by Anna Von Ritz, and it's an article from another blog, which I'll link as well. The way the world is organized reflects the way the earth is organized in separate realms of air, land, and sea. Air is global in nature and deals with matters of energy, spirit, and intellect. This is the realm of copyrights and patents and all intellectual property rights. Okay, we'll go over what these words and terms mean as we go It's something that you got to know anyway. This is also where we find ecclesiastical and canon law. That's biblical law. Okay, that's air. The realm of the sea is international in nature and deals with matters of commerce and trade between nations. This is where you find sea treaties affecting the flow of goods between nations and the law of nations affecting international agreements such as the United Nations declarations. This is the realm of maritime commercial law or termed admiralty martial or admiralty law. Okay, so I've been saying and trying to get people to understand that martial law is not coming. Martial law begins with the structure of law that you are living in. Whether you know it or not, that's what it is. And we have lived in martial law since the 1800s in all technical quantifications of it. Okay? It's not just people have a misconception of what martial law is. Martial law thinks you have military in the streets or whatnot, but no, you can have private contractors filling that role for you that don't look like military, but they kind of do. They obviously do, but they're different colors or whatnot. Okay, but they do have sergeants. They do have squads, quadrants. They have all the terminologies of a military police force. Okay, and they're commercial contract mercenaries, foreign entities operating in your counties, cities, and states. Let me reiterate that. They are foreign contracted private military groups that are in your cities, towns, and counties. They are not your local brother. Yes, they are hired in, but they are trained, mind controlled at maximum to believe that they are superior to you when they are not. Continuing. Finally, there is the land. The land, which is national in nature. This is where you find in America county and state law. Remember that in our country, each state is a nation. So that the words interstate and international mean the same thing for us from our perspective. This is the realm of American common law. Okay, let me restate that. This is the realm of American common law, not just English common law. English common law came as a model, but the Americans made it their own, which is what we're here to talk about. And the actual Constitution, all this is the realm of the American common law and the actual American Constitution. Please note that there are many forms of common law, and you must specify American common law, or you may easily find yourselves operating under martial common law or English common law or whatever else a particular court may have on offer. We go into more details on that later. Continuing. So, air, land, and sea also translate as global, national, and international. Over time, the Pope and the British monarchs have colluded to usurp upon the national governments owed to the living people throughout the world, and have sought to replace our national governments with governmental services corporations instead, what we call federal government. Anyway, that's the basic summary, okay? And it's the best description that I have found on the basic concepts of jurisdiction. We'll go into further why that's important as we go forward. Carter, did you have any questions on that first part? because I know it's a complex little thing, but it's a fundamental piece to kind of help us keep going forward with putting this together slowly.
Yes, I do have some questions. I was trying to think of what jurisdiction these. So we have these jurisdictions happening all at the same time. We got
Right.
these three different jurisdictions that are it. You know,
Functioning.
I guess
In principle, they are always in operation 24/7, as we
I,
understand it.
right. And if that's true, how can we be in the jurisdiction of the sea if we're up here walking on the land?
Okay. Perfect. Great question. Okay. How what this to best describe it is you have to look at everybody's heard the term evidence. Okay. You have a particular ideology and you want to gather some evidence around to kind of see if this ideology is right or wrong, okay, or good or bad or continuing or whatever. The evidence that the jurisdiction of the sea is operating on the land, is flooded land, right, is in what I was explaining with the cop situation or the police officer. Okay, that any person that comes in and claims authority over another in the common law jurisdiction of the land, on the land jurisdiction, no one has authority to do that. No one has the authority to come. Oh, that nobody has authority over another person. Okay, and the evidence that we're operating in admiralty law or the law of the sea is an international code that claims there are certain authorities depending on where your boat is located. Okay, um, and to the best describe it is um, the sea jurisdiction is everything is considered to be a vessel, and that vessel has a commander, and that commander has authority over the vessel. And so, in a militaristic term, the your superior has the authority over you. That's all a maritime admiralty law on a boat or in any kind of military situation, and it's international in nature. But my point is this: the evidence of the cop coming to your door and um, imposing his will upon you. Let's say you end up being arrested and taken from your home, even though you have done nothing wrong. That's them automatically assuming that they have authority over you, and that would only come from the martial admiralty law principle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just so much to it. It's difficult to sum it all up
Right.
and stuff because there's so many different parts to it that are operating.
Right. You have to again, it begins with um, understanding jurisdictions. I mean, that's where it all starts. Because in that description of the jurisdictions, you will understand how this is supposed to be operating. In a common law jurisdiction, if the people were given the authority that they're supposed to have, because in our constitutional America, the people have all the authority. There is nothing or no one else that can come over, or no group of people that can come over and overrule what the people and what they have to say. Okay, so in that scenario, in a non-martial law, non sea jurisdictional way of law, okay, a law form that's of the sea, the counter to that is in a common law system, the officer would not even be knocking on your door unless there was a warrant issued. Why do I say that? They would be to kind of give it a little further. They would have to, unless they had a warrant, be standing out on the sidewalk and hoping you come answer the door. Now, let's say they do come to the door, they knock on the door, and let's say that's plausibly okay, right? So they come up and knock on your door. They would not set foot or even attempt to set foot in your house unless you invited them in. They would stand there and give you, if they had, hey, there's a robber in the neighborhood, want to let you know. Right, I have a question for you. You're a witness to an accident on the 4th of July, and I need to have some questions answered. Right, the warrantless current scenarios, which I'll pull some up later to kind of show you martial law. Okay, that's right here in your hometowns, and it's a sea jurisdiction. It's not a land jurisdiction. But it is a very complex, but it's very simple. Once you kind of start peeling the apple a little bit, the meat inside the apple is nice and soft, and it's nice and sweet as you get to it. And that's what I like to do, is trying to explain this on a video type thing is a difficult thing, but we're going to do it. I mean, that's how we have to have it done. But anyway, did that kind of answer your question? In other words, I think your question was, repeat your question and let's see if I answered it properly. Just give a general idea of what your question was.
My original question was, how can we be operating? How could anybody that's walking on the land be in the jurisdiction of the sea?
By the sea jurisdiction enforcing itself on you. Or that's the only way to best describe it. But the evidence of the sea jurisdiction being forced on land is by the police officer, or what you're calling representatives or public servants, can impose their will upon you. And then you have to prove yourself as being innocent. In fact, if we can go into what that would actually entail once we get ourselves in order here. Right? But that's the sea jurisdiction is being forced upon you, and you don't realize that's what it is. And that's where it comes from, is from that principle of jurisdiction. And you're not understanding what that means, or what that even exists at the time. And then the force overcomes your will. Right? When in a common law, the land jurisdiction, the way this is our whole American system is set up, is that the system or other corporations cannot come in and force themselves upon you in any way, shape, or form, especially for profit, which is what they're doing. Okay. Oh, okay. So I think I kind of got that nailed down. Right. Now go ahead. Everybody, Dr. Jump. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think that another thing that would be interesting to keep in mind would be the language that is used, what
Right.
kind of language they're using, and what do they mean by the words that they're saying in these courts and these different places that we see enforcing this.
Well, the extension of
over people.
Right. The extension of the court that you just mentioned is the police officer. Right. You have a county sheriff, and then you have a police force. Right. So in the two names, in all reality, the sheriff is the protector of the people's rights, natural rights, or human rights, not constitutional rights. Right? The Constitution only mentioned a little couple pieces of your rights. It even tells you that in plain English, but we'll go over that in a second, a little bit later too. Okay, but the police officer is a corporation acting as, or being given the usurped sheriff departments, right, that are corrupted, are allowing the police force, the contracted corporations calling themselves, such and such police, the city of Dallas police, or the city of Florida, city of Miami police, right? Police department. That's a corporation acting as your sheriff. Now, even in that function, they have nowhere near the same power. The sheriff is actually your highest authority. Your county sheriff is over any other even governors. However, in this current system, they don't. They're a contracted group as well. But anyway, anything that the system can contract out and have a private for-profit corporation come in, and the banks can loan them money, they want it. They're going to subvert your local your local, protections and take them all the way down to where you don't even know they exist, which I think is mission complete on that. Except for there's a few of us that are trying to get this stuff out and get this going. Question?
Keeping on the jurisdictions.
Right.
My question that I want to ask you is, who we have the police that are the strong arm. They're the ones that are here on the ground enforcing this law, these jurisdictions on the people.
Right.
So, who are the other players that are involved in keeping this system going? Because clearly this whole jurisdiction thing ties into everything that we're doing. So everybody is affected by what we're talking about. So,
Right.
but can you talk about the people that are behind this, the people that are in different positions above the military side?
Yeah, but that'd be kind of jumping, going in. If we're trying to, first see the chessboard we're playing, and then we got to see the squares and the different colors, and then we got to see the. Then we start seeing the pawns and the players, right? The pieces to the puzzle. And right now we're trying to. My goal is to lay out the board and identify the checkerboard, the two different colors, right? So we can get a landscape view. But to bring it from the ground up, it goes from at this point, it goes from your parents, okay, then out to your courts, your local courts, which their expressions would be police officers, SWAT teams, even fire departments, and all this stuff would all be extensions of the military type, the jurisdiction, the martial law jurisdiction. The emergency services fall under that category. And what we're dealing with is contracted commercial, private contractors, right? Private corporations coming in and filling these roles instead of the people actually having their rightful style. But the higher players, it keeps going up. Then it goes, let's go up to your legislature, your Congress, your Treasury, your banks, everything that you have grown up in, your water districts, your city government, your ISDs, or your school districts, your postal zones, everything is that we've grown up in and come to understand and take for granted is a military jurisdiction, is a military style setup. Zip codes, for example, we think of them as just postal addresses, let's say, but a zip code is a triangulation of a position. It's a grid line imaginary that they can measure out, and they could pull up either a Air Force or a ground unit and draw coordinates just off of that zip code. Okay, and your street, what you think is your address, okay, is a pinpointed position. Okay, and I know that sounds extreme, but that's what it is. Okay, and all wars are bankers' wars, and when the banks say you're bankrupt, and they know they built you for everything you got, you get a little bit angry, and you say, no, I don't see the possibility of that being so, when you're issuing debt notes of your own and making us believe, or conning us, or forcing us to believe that it has value, and therefore, enforcing something that is far beyond your jurisdiction. And that's where they're at. That's where they're at the point where banks, through issuance of currency, control what we've called our governments. And with those banks, they loan out monies to other entities, and all they got to do is create a paper trail and create contracts, and those contracts are filled by this entity, and that entity is for profit that they loan millions of dollars to get started, and he's got a guaranteed customer. Boom, 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 boom. You build models on that, and you just keep spreading it out. So down on the ground, all the way up to the top would be what people have classified as your roundtable groups. Okay, your big think tanks. These think tanks are bankers, right? they're all tied to not just bankers, but they have everything on their stuff. But the big wigs, the big players, are financiers and money management and algorithmic calculation, you know, type of peeps and type of groups, and they're all networked together. The Bilderbergs, your CFRs, your trilateral commissions, your then you go a layer into that. You go into your secret societies. That I know that sounds witchcraft, but it's not really when you really look at what it is. That's more of a cover to the whole thing. It's a way of getting your mind to kind of shut down. Oh, it's not that important by thinking of it like witchcraft, but it's more of a we'll get into some of that, right? But the high thing, the guys controlling the things are the people that control the money. And you go into another layer where it's a global family unit, right? Of different blood lineage, if you will. Again, I'm going to try to keep from going into a lot of that in detail at this one, but I will be going into that. But it comes down to the higher echelon, or the higher, in our case, from my standpoint, they're the lower beings. They're not a higher being. They're a lower being because they're feeding off of the idea of taking the substance of man, having man willfully give up their substance and give it to them for free. And all they had to do is scare you to do it. That's the basic principle. But these bloodlines, families, some say there's 13, some say there's 26, some say there's 21, some say there's 7, some say there's 6, right? That's a highly important stuff because it goes into how the system was implemented. And it's not just the system on the outside, but how you think and how you feel and how you think that you make the decision to buy things and to consume this and to pay that and to do this. That's all a programmed way of thinking. It's programmed into you. It's not your natural way of being. And the expression of life that we see today, a human life today, can be described as quite chaotic, but that's because we're being forced out of our natural state of being. And with that, the side effect is all these problems we're having that don't seem to ever get solved, right? But we can go into some details on that as we go forward. But on the jurisdictional side, those the three basic principles of land, sea, and air gives us the basic starting point of, okay, where do I belong in this realm of law? Because it's three fundamental functions of law, that all other ones come out of that, right? All other ones come out of, all laws come out of that. So what we're living in, another clue that the sea jurisdiction is what's being used as law form on the people is when they call statutes. If you ask an officer that's sitting at 7-Eleven grabbing a big gulp and ask him what the statute is for wearing my seatbelt, he'll be kind enough to pull up on his laptop right there in his car, high-tech paper you buy tax dollars. If we can, anyway, continuing forward, he can look it right up for you and tell you the statute number. In fact, he might even be able to print that little thing off for you in his little printer if he's got one, right? The statute is a corporate rule. It's not a law. Significantly different, but they're trying to, or have pretty much merged the two together, where people think, I'm using statute 1309.9, disturbing the peace. You need to put your hands behind your back and don't resist, right? And don't ask any questions. Oh, by the way, you do have the right to remain silent after they've already got you cuffed and put in the car, and then they have this little card and give you a courtesy of maybe. Usually they'll even take you to jail and never read you your Miranda rights, which are only an illusion because you have way more rights than what that little piece of paper, and as minuscule as they try to make it appear. It's highly important. But we'll go into how the other aspect to my broadcast is I want to help people learn to take baby steps to start enforcing, what's the best way to put it, but learning how to express your freedoms that have been suppressed. But it takes little steps at a time. You can't do it right away. You got to take one step at a time. And, we'll go into how this all works and how we start our country back, if you will, our nation back, one county at a time. Because it'll just snowball from there. And there's many of us that work on doing this. I'm just kind of a little expression of my own, but I'm connected to millions of people trying to get millions and millions more people to take the time out to stop and listen, and not just listen, but take some initiative and some research and put it towards something of good use, which is learning how to express ourselves properly, enforce our will to where we're supposed to, and manage our clean our house here local, or nationally, but starting locally. Clean house, get it functioning the way it's supposed to function. That's priority one. And to start that, we got to understand jurisdictions. But anyway, yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah. So how do we understand jurisdictions? How does someone go about trying to learn about the jurisdictions and trying to figure out what all of this means?
Okay. Well, step one would be the key tools. If you want to have a starter kit, it would be it would be your basic founding documents, right? Because that's the contracts that are signed that generationally we are there to make sure are upheld. Okay, and all the Constitution did not establish any power structure. It didn't establish any law. It was just laying out the guidelines that the uh, national government should be operating within realms. It was basically chains for our services corporation, that is a services company, to come in and elected by the people and all this whole thing, to come in and make sure that all the people's freedoms are protected, right? That their liberties, which is another term, it would basically books, bro. It would be Black's Law Dictionary, founding documents, not just reading the founding documents, taking those founding documents, using a law dictionary, because that's where it all's coming from, and start looking. And that's one step at a time. I'll even walk people through that, right? I'll walk people through, okay, here's where we're going to start. Right here in the first paragraph, let's look at what this means. What does people mean, right? People think, oh, it's just the guy with a heart and a mind and lungs and 2 feet and 2 hands and walking through the. No, people is a specific type of humanoid, right? People are people that are aware of themselves. That separates us from all other living expressions that we know of right now, right? We are completely and utterly aware of ourselves and are able to do some miraculous things, but we'll get into that later, right? So it's a Black's Law Dictionary. There's a couple other ones that you can get your hands on, as far as Bouvier's dictionary. Libraries have these things if you can't afford to get one, but I'll put some links on some of the stuff as once I'm get all this going. I'll have links for all that, and I'll be on this description. I'll put some in. What else? Like one good one is Anna von Ritz's book, and there's several other books out there that I'd like to kind of go into as well. But her book describes what I just described in jurisdictions and all that. Something is wrong when something is wrong when an American affidavit for probable cause. And then my book that I'm working on right now, the PDF, easy to get to. You can go to my website, which I'll leave a link for, and I'll leave a link for my book as well. And it explains the jurisdictions, what we're just going over as well, a little bit more detail. But to get again, that's just a snapshot. It takes a lot of resources and a lot of things to get to the bottom of how this all works, and then how we actually takes a ton more research, learning how we actually lawfully start, fighting back. I hate using the term, but that's what you gotta do. You know, start being able to defend yourself properly.
Yeah, yeah, and so we need to get the tools, but first I think what we've got to do is try and just gain as much knowledge as we possibly can about this stuff and try to just get the entire picture and keep moving forward. But I wanted to ask you as well, how, I mean, I want to elaborate more on what kind of actions people can take no matter what their circumstances may be. What can somebody do, around anybody? Speaking at a global level, how could someone try to take action? And so we know we need to start off by uh, education, knowledge and information, gaining more knowledge about this. But what are some other things that people can do in their local area, on the ground in their area, no matter what their circumstances are? What kind of action can be taken to try and further and keep moving forward with this type of information and keep the momentum going,
Right.
I guess.
Well, and again, it comes down to supporting each other and you know the responsibility on both sides. There's responsibility where that's public knowledge, that should be public knowledge, that all that is needed is to point the finger in the direction of how you actually take the next step or another step or this, that, and the other. Then there's other stuff that is intellectual property where it's taken a lot of research and a lot of reading and a lot of headaches and pain along the way to figure this stuff out. So some stuff there is some intellectual property to, and but it comes down to helping each other and if you like give me an example that most people are programmed to, I'm going to say Nike for a pair of shoes, right? And Nike is slave labor, so the shoe is indeed a decent shoe, which is really low quality, but it looks pretty good. But hey, and they're going to pay a top dollar. If you go to another shoe, that's the same shoe, but it's made by a local company, mom and pop. It has a better quality, but there is some price that is it's more expensive. Okay, they're going to go with the Nike shoe, even though they even if they don't know, they're buying a slave labor good, right? Where it's slave labor making it, right? So it comes from in this system, we have to supply each other with what we need. I mean, and supporting each other in what they're doing, right? So if you're doing, it's building an audience and getting people to appreciate themselves enough to want to learn more. And then if you find a person that has a good discerner of information that you're feeling or you have contact with, because again, starting these things off, you have direct contact virtually with the people that are we're talking with and all that stuff, because I'll have some people on that we can talk to. But it's supporting each other, getting the resources, saying, hey, you know what, I'm not quite seeing it. It's just like anything, it takes some time, and you're not going to know. You might get a little ping on something you might kind of understand, but you need a little bit more data or need a little bit more knowledge on. And you go and find it, ask questions, talk to us or whoever might be, or go to a library or whatever. Just start doing basic research, fun stuff. It's good stuff. And then you support each other, help each other kind of keep this thing going. And it's basically sending the signal. And in that function, you send the signal that you're not sleeping anymore. And that's why it's if the Facebook is CIA and FBI, and the systems are all designed in order to track our every thought, feeling and emotion, then we want to tell them that we know, right? We don't want to hide that we know. We have to. We're so conditioned to be scared of that, where we have to kind of shake ourselves out of that and realize that, with with what we're finding out and what we're learning and we're relearning, we don't have to be afraid, right? We don't have to be, oh, I don't want, big Uncle Sam's going to know this, or Big Brother's going to know that, or the Illuminati or whatever. They're going to know. We want them to know. We want them to know that we're alive, dude. We want them to know that we're coming, and we're getting more and more aware. And with that awareness, the perpetrators of this, because it's a high crime, and that's not even a word to put it, right? It's a crime what has been done to us. We just have to identify the crime itself. We have to identify what has happened, right? And so we have to learn step one. And I know this sounds silly, but step one is understanding jurisdictions. With that, I can show you, and the whole thing to probable cause, the affidavit of probable cause, is so once you have this understanding, we can start as a collective, as a whole American living on land. We are due, and you have signed contracts with the American people to these 19 numerated or enumerated services only. Anything else is a breach of contract, meaning that there's consequences for that. In order to get us there, we got to start from square one, right? Plain and simple. You don't have to be an attorney or what people have conceived as an attorney, bar associate, this, that, and the other. You don't have to be any of that. That's designed to make it look, give an excuse to why it costs so much to find that as a field. It's stuff that, as a high school student, you should know that your school can't impose themselves upon you, and that you're there collectively to learn, right? You say, well, kids are crazy. In some cases, yes, you're right. But in most cases, they're not. They're there to, they're there to learn. They're there. If the parents did their part and the kid has reasonable discernment and a reasonable judgment and a reasonable character, it's going to be just fine. You don't have to have a prison system built in to your school system. It's a way of conditioning, and this is the design. Technically, it's designed to make subservient prisoners. So when, if let's put it as when or if calamity strikes, it's not so scary to go into a system that is telling you what to do all the time on every level. When you can go pee, you need a pass for that. Right? Don't get it. Don't. You're disturbing the class if you need to go pee. Instead, you're going to disturb the class in a different way, but yet it's still disturbing the class to say, hey, I need to raise my hand, go up to the teacher, get a thing. When in reality, in a freedom in America, if you need to go pee, you quietly get up and you go pee. Right? Just an example. Anyway, that's a little tidbit. Did you have any questions?
Yeah, so I was thinking of another question. So why, if someone that was just did not care about this situation,
What I'm
this
describing?
this situation that we're in, if someone didn't, like, if there's the people that don't care about this and think that it doesn't matter and are just letting it happen and have been programmed and are living in the matrix, how would you explain to that person why they should care and how it affects them and why they should care about it?
Okay. Well, first off, it's people that let's say somebody that is completely disconnected and has in all reality has no discernment of their own. I wouldn't really try to approach that. I would let a situation occur to where I could kind of intercede and say, hey, see, this is where this is important. For the general, what I find mostly is for people that are somewhat aware and they're starting to kind of, take some um, interest in some other complex ways of thinking. I tend to have a better, easier time in describing this. So, like an example is I can be at McDonald's. This happened to me a couple days ago, and I'm sitting there doing my thing, having a discussion with this guy. And as I'm having discussion, I'm not a very quiet guy. So as I'm discussing it, I have more and more people coming. Started with one guy, then two, three guys. At the end of it, in a matter of I'd say 10, about 10, 15 minutes, I had about 6 to 8 people sitting around asking questions. Right, and out of that 6 to 8 people, I can almost say at least three of them, maybe a fourth one, but probably not. I'd say probably about three people actually went to the next step and you know, said, okay, took some of what I was saying and looked into it. Now, whether that died off along the way, who knows, right? But I do know several days to a couple weeks after that, the one of the ladies that was there saw me at the library, asked me, I need your help, and I asked some questions, introduced me to her brother, and we sat there at the library and had a little bit of discussion. And by the end of it, they're like, hey, where can I get more information? This, that, and the other. You direct it to the website, or you direct it to this, or you get their email address or Facebook and all that, and kind of start peeling a little bit of onion one step at a time. But ultimately, it's their decision. So when it comes to learning jurisdiction, it's as simple as trying to help someone that's somewhat aware and is awake, but is somewhat aware, and trying to get them to value themselves a little more. Well, if you really value your stuff, I see you're eating a lot of, you're conscious of what you're eating, but are you really conscious of who you are, what you are? You have another good motivator is the police beating the crap out of people for not having a driver's license or not having a, not presenting a ID when they request it and this, that, and the other. It's pretty out of those groups. It's pretty quick, right? They're ready to learn. So out of those are the ones I tend to gravitate to. Is the expressions of martial law on the microcosm, right? Is right there in front of us. We just got to identify it for what it is, honestly, right? So I tend to hit somebody from that angle. It's much easier to bring in and let them know that they already identify that these people should not be imposing their will upon us for minor, what would be construed as minor offenses. But they'll literally tase you, shoot you, whatever needs to be done if you don't present them with an ID and you question and rebuke their authority. So they have to. It's up to us to take responsibility for that, right? It's up to us on the ground. It's not the police department's responsibility to say, oh, we need to rein ourselves back, right? It's up to us, the people, saying, hey, you're over encroaching, and it might not be you personally, but someone 1,000 miles away that is you. They are just as much you as you are you, right? They are your, if you will, your brother. They are man just as you. And what if it's done to them, it will be done to you, right? So we have to get this under control, and it's up to us to do it. And it takes learning some what appears at first to be kind of like mundane, boring stuff, turns into pretty exciting as you learn that you have the authority, and it will be, if it is violated, you have recourse, right? And you don't need to hire an attorney or a lawyer to go and do it for you. You can do it yourself, right? It's not that hard at all. You just got to learn the basic stuff, right? Just basic elementary school stuff on how to file a complaint, not just at the department, but through your court system. And out of that court system, how to, it's all just timing, dates, and mailing, return receipts, this kind of thing. It's very easy stuff. But I think that the best approach is, don't sweat the small stuff and get to the people that are wanting to learn, right? Wanting to at least learn a little bit more. And you throw them off with some of your stuff, but at the same time, that helps them look into more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like people that have been directly affected,
Victimized.
although
Yeah.
we all have, but people that have been directly affected by this system
Right.
are and have witnessed witnessed it are, like you said, more likely to be willing to uh, want to learn about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
I
I mean,
think that
how it affects
that's true.
everyone, every single person that will ever listen to this as of right now, right, and any time in the future, it affects you in the way that you have to. Let's use a driver's license or the ID concept. Okay, just that concept alone affects everyone at some point in their life, right? I have to have a state identification card, all the way down to where you have to have one of those, one of three documents, paper, with ink on them, to prove that you are you to get a job. Okay, simple everyday 7-Eleven job. You need these documents. Now, prior to when I was a kid, when I was younger, you didn't have all that. But you had to, it was okay, but it was like okay, yeah, it that started in like I don't later on, like it started to where it was like fundamentally you have to, and more current day. I mean, it's to the point now where everyone must have an identification, and if you don't, you are silly, miserable, and must be some irresponsible fool for not having the responsibility of identifying yourself, right? When I know who the fuck I am, right? I know who I am. My kids know who I am. My wife knows who I am. My, well, the system doesn't know who you are. That's good, right? But we're conditioned, right? We believe that, well, you have to have a driver's license to drive a car. Okay. So, in what I just said, people automatically draw a conclusion, right? But what if I was to say this? I have the full 100 unabated right to travel in my automobile at my own accord, at my own will, anywhere I want to go. No regulation. Nobody can has a say that I can't do that, right? In the common law of the land, common law, American law, you have all right of travel unabated. And in fact, you have the unabated right to emphatically deny anyone that says anything different. That's supported by your founding documents in all matters, of course, right? But yet people still will argue with me that no, you have to have a driver's license. It's for safety. That's the number one thing that's always used is for safety. Okay, let's look at that. It's safer to have a guy in an automobile or in a car that smashes into the side of your car that and with a sticker on the window and a big license plate on front and back tagging it as a state vehicle, not your own, and you are using it and he's somehow with these stickers, plates, and this thing in his wallet, there's a big force field around him and he guarantees that he will not run into anyone or hurt anybody. It ain't gonna happen, right? Not factored whatsoever. There is no safety element to it. It's a tracking, identifying yourself willfully so we don't have to work if something, okay, let's use another one. You got somebody that robs a house and he has an ID in his wallet. Do you now know that he can bust it because he had an ID in his wallet? No, right? It doesn't. It doesn't guarantee anything, right? And I can fake in any ID. I don't want to say this, but anybody with any wherewithal or any want to can fake an identification card at any time, and it would, you can get down to where people can get those things to look real close, right? So it's really a facade. It's a scare tactic to get people to believe for safety, I need to have these things. Is it nice to know that just about everyone on the road has the education enough on driving in order to travel down the road safely, right? Yes, it is. But it ain't the state's responsibility. That still comes back to you and the community as a whole. And if a guy doesn't know how to drive a car and he smashes into someone, you have, again, the basic common sense is you're going to go to court, and he's going to lose, right? It was an accident. Old school stuff. Back in the old days, you didn't have any of this stuff. You didn't. If you got in an accident, you took his name, his number. If you had insurance, great, you write it down. And if you didn't, great, because you're going to end up. You don't even end up in court. It's all through the mail, and dude ends up being liable or whatever. And if he doesn't pay a due, let's say, then he would have a lien against his property or his income. There's several ways you go about it. Is it a little bit more tedious? Sure, but freedom is intact. Freedom is intact, right? And that's more important than being able to have an insurance company that, let's say, okay, the guy, one car has insurance and the other guy doesn't. The guy that smashed you doesn't have insurance, but you do. Well, that's what you got insurance for. You got insurance, so just in case that dude doesn't have insurance, smashes your car, and okay, well, it affects my monthly bill. Then, okay, yeah. So you got an inconvenience, you got a minor inconvenience, and you got a minor inconvenience on one, but freedom's intact. Which one you choose? Freedom's intact, right? Only thing that makes sense. Not in today's world, right? In today's world, no, it's better to have the government have control over you, or at least have the facade that he has control over you, and you pay for everything along the way, again and again and again and again and again, and that makes more sense, and that's responsible, and that's what good people do, right? Well, I'm here to wake you up, right? I'm here to wake people up to say, hey, hold on a second, there's something wrong with that, because you have millions of people been victimized by these very simple examples that I used, and have had life-changing events happen to them by having these implements of control or illusions of control, and they're only there to control you. They're not there for any safety whatsoever. None, right? When you get down and you peel the onion, if it provides 0.01% of safety, and you're telling me that's worth losing everyone's freedom of immunity, right? That's our right. It's not to be touched. We have the right to be unidentified. Okay, if I do something wrong, and rape, steal, pillage, whatever it is, I will end up having my due course. Period. End of story. Right? You'd much rather have 100 guilty men go free than have one man lose his freedom. Period. End of story. Next question. Anyway, that's just my thought on that. I mean, that's and there's a lot of people that feel the same way as me, right? That we have an inherent right that has to be enforced by us, because there is nothing in the system that can enforce it for us. And regardless of the trickery, the double thinking in people's minds, and I don't care if it's the whole entire planet has this double thinking in their heads, I'm still going to be the one saying, no, you don't have that right. And I will, I'll do everything in my power to get more and more people to understand that there's certain things we can't give up, regardless of one guy. And if you look at the percentages, it's ridiculous, right? But we'll go into stuff like that later. But yeah, it's a highly important issue, and it's so important that it's so important that we learn how to operate ourselves in reality, and take action locally to take back our county systems first, because that's where it all starts. It doesn't start from electing some guy. If we had true elections and we elected some representative to, act in that role for the corporation that is all that is, and he's only going to be able, let's say that George Washington himself was elected under the guise of Donald Trump, right? And he's the spirit of George Washington, and he's going one step at a time, and not overstepping anything on certain issues that he knows would end up being catastrophic, just treading lightly on some things, but just hammering away at the pedophile satanic ring around the world that traffics humans and sacrifices children and creates mind control slaves of the entire population, right? Let's say that that's the case. We still have to have and play our role. We have to take this back and fix the things that we all can identify as problems. We have to take our own responsibility and take and learn how to impose our jurisdiction, the rightful jurisdiction, against the corporations that are in the wrong jurisdiction and have flooded this planet with a jurisdiction of the water. Thus, Noah's flood is right here in our living rooms, right now as we're speaking, right? And we have to drain and get back to get ourselves on land. Set loose that dove, let them find that breaking branch, and come up out of that water and learn how to walk on it. Walk on it means that they can have that system in place, and it's for commercial use of public property, right? You are public, you are superior, you are emperor, you are, the king, and your president is below you. He ain't above you. Your president is a representative of the people. The people is you if you claim it. You're either a citizen or you're the people. Which association you want to be with, right? Because I don't see any citizen mentioned anywhere in the Constitution. It's we the people. If you identify as people, then have the evidences to prove that you are. And that's what we're all about. Once you have those proofs and have those evidences, all you need is 3 to identify that you are a people's of the people. They have no authority over you. They know they have no authority, and every judge knows it, every senator knows it, and if they don't, you will educate. You will teach them. You will wake them up. You will help the blind see, and you'll raise the dead. Because what you're being assumed by assumption, and you must prove that you are not in this system, that you are not a dead vessel, lost at sea, and all inherent rights that you have, not just rights, that's one possession of yours, but all under the real jurisdiction. We share the wealth of the nation. We all share it. That means every piece of, every sand molecule of gold, silver, uranium, plutonium, oil, gas, I hate to say it, but water now, clean air, whatever, every resource, rubies, diamonds, emeralds, whatever, all those resources, trees, crops, everything is all ours to share equally. It's no one's to claim as their own. That's all fake. That's all. I know people that that cherish the private property concept, but the only private property you have is your body, your mind, and the house. That's the house of your soul. That's your private property. Everything else is everyone's to share equally. I can't steal anything from you because I have everything I need. I mean, that's where we got to get to. That's where we're going. I know it's hard to see now because all of us have, all we've known and all what our history has been, even our history has been manipulated for us to believe that this is how it's always been, but it's not. It's not how it's always been. We've been where we're going. We're just going back to it, brother. We're almost there. We have millions of people worldwide that are trying to find an alternative. They know that economics by itself is a virus in our minds. The concept of monetary systems being any part of a productive society is thinking wrong. It's double thinking. You cannot have a perpetually infinite production of quality progression or whatever you want to call it. You cannot produce it with a money system. You can't do it. You're only going to get a regulated, slow drip of what is possible. And the reason why they have to have that, you see, every microcosmic element of functioning of your life has to be regulated and toned down so they can keep that control there. And here's the thing is they know now it's written into your code, into your DNA, so it's much easier to implement that system. You're much more open to the suggestion that I am not all that is, all that was, and all that ever should be, would be, could be. Right? They can't have you thinking how you naturally are. You're the natural creation of all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be. That's what you are. And all these systems are in to keep you from feeling that way and expressing that. Right? And in order to shatter it, we can't attack this thing with a little chisel. We have to go with it with a, as big, as persistent, as sharp as the concept is hard to explain. We have to come at them with everything we got, and it's not big weapons, and it's not an external thing. It's an all internal. It's all internal. It's all, and it all comes down to the what do you call that? The king, the Lucifer, not Lucifer. Sorry, the sword and the stone, right? The whoever can pull that sword out is gonna rule the world, right? He's gonna have the kingdom. He's the king. It's that's what we're after, right? We're after you to see that is within yourself. Pull that sword out of the stone only because, and the thing is even though it's a fairy tale, right? It's all fucking made up, but that is it's an analogy for all of us to within ourselves to become our own King Arthur. In the kid, it was all these people coming up trying like hell to pull that sword out, and all it took was a kid that didn't try at all. That's all that story is telling you. It's telling you a basic summary of it. It all the big strong men and all this stuff didn't have the common sense to don't try. Just slide it out. And now came the sword, and then so the story goes. Just a little example. Sorry. But yeah, it's a highly important thing. It's a very important aspect of our lives, and it's an aspect that the general everyday people just aren't going to get. They're much more interested in the lives of others than the lives of their own and lives of their kids. The true life, because that's what it comes down to. There's a trueness to it, and every one of us, when hearing it, can feel it. That wait, what if? What if it were possible? What if it were possible that without money you wouldn't have cancer? You wouldn't have the inability to get off the planet, let's say, or the inability to get to the other planets, or the inability to cure this disease or cure that disease, or what have you. There is no limits to the capabilities of man if we release ourselves from the idea, mind-controlled idea, that we need money to be productive, because it's completely the opposite. You need money to be destructive. That's all it is. That's as plain and simple as I can put it. And I have detractors left and right. I know, because you're again. I could ask you, has money always been? You'd be like, oh yeah. Well, okay, money concept. What if I told you there was a currency that was based on sticks, and the notches in the sticks are what the value that you have in your pocket? Now you would say to me, how ridiculous is that? And how it's a plain and simple, in your face example. It's a fact that they had. It's called what was it called? Do you remember what it was called, Car?
What are you
It was a
thinking?
British. It was a British form of currency. Was these notches on these sticks?
I know. I remember what you were talking about. I think that I think I heard that was that was going back to the bankers and the original bankers. It must
Right.
be. I'm sure that the Jews
slates.
maybe.
They called it slates. But anyway, the point is this: it's nothing. It's made up. It's fiction. It's just as real as sticks. It's just as real as paper, and it's just as real as ink. And because the system forces you to believe that it has value, you buy your milk with it. Right? Now I know. Yeah, you know by now. Yeah, it's been many, many years that this has been in play. And it's been drilled in your mind from day one. Right? But in all reality, it's a regulator. It's a Luciferian. It's all designed to slow the progress of your consciousness becoming all that it can be and all that it should be. That's what it is, and nobody will ever convince me otherwise. And it just doesn't produce, it doesn't help produce or production. If there was no money, then everybody would be lazy. That's your own version of yourself being pushed on everyone else because it's bullshit. If you had no worry about balancing checkbooks, paying bills, all this stuff, oh, it's welfare. No, sorry, it's going back into the mind control. Not a welfare. It's not communism where the state or the corporation owns everything. You own nothing, and they only allow you usury. That, but we'll go into the details of that later and what that actually means. In America, the American common law system, there was no money to exchange between the people. Didn't need it. It was a commonwealth system. Everyone shared in the wealth of the common. And that common is everything that was in that area. Now, again, not saying it's a perfect system, but as we move forward in time, we get better at things, I would hope. But in this current system, we don't. We get worse, right? You think it's much better now. That's all that you know, right? That's all your history books that you had in school that you didn't go out of your way to go to the library or go out of your way to go to the bookstore and read about other aspects or other time frames in history. And that's still stuff that's being filtered through a system. But anyway, if you read, Socrates, Plato, I'll go back in time, right? You'll see it right there. It's all natural law. It's all right there in front of us for us to learn. That what's called esoteric knowledge is all about this. It's all about jurisdictions. It's all about laws and creations. It's all about money magic. It's all about language, magic with language. It's all about all this stuff is all interconnected, intertwined, interwoven. It is all it is. And it took all this stuff in order to pull you out of your natural state of being. It took every implementation that I'm going to describe through this broadcast, and over time, if allowed, is all this stuff was created to pull you out of your natural state of being. Nothing else. It's not about money. It's not about greed. It's not about power. The number one goal is to keep you from being you. And I know people are going to slap me up and down for saying that, but your true you don't even know. You can't even identify your jurisdiction. Most people can't even identify, again, why are we even having this discussion, right? To help people from the ground level to understand their power, to understand their abilities, to understand their full scope of life has been taken away from them, and they need to want it back. You have to get them to see it to get them to want it back. And that's what we're trying to do, right? And it's not just us. There's millions of us out there doing the same thing in their own different way, but we're all doing the same thing. We're getting people to think. We're trying to get people to look at things a little bit more clearly, and not just clearly, but deeply. And come back. We need you to come back. Okay, and we're gonna get you, right? We're gonna get it. We're gonna get people to take notice, and it's gonna keep growing. And we're only experiencing the baby kicks in the bellies of the womb of Earth, because it's coming, and there ain't no place for these people to hide. They're not gonna get away with it. It's over for them. They already know it's over for them. All this stuff we're seeing now is a reverberation of a global consciousness that is reverberating around the globe, and people are getting sick of these satanic, devil worshiping, child molesting, all this evilness was done only simply for no other reason. And all the greed and all the power and all that stuff was all illusion. It's all fake. We all know it's fake. It's a figment of your imagination. It's only there if other people believe it to be so. This was all designed to keep you from knowing yourself. That's why this is so important. I mean, I could go on forever on describing this stuff, right? I can go on forever at pointing all these little laser pointer at different subject matters, and there's never enough time in our lives to get as much and everything that is. It's not going to happen, right? It's that immaculate. It's that unbelievable to try to get people into themselves, and with that, you'll see the vastness of where we're going and what we're able to do, and the benefits. I don't even want to call them benefits. It's not benefits. It's our natural way of being, right? Our natural way of being with no restraints, no carburetors on our progression, no control systems to bring us to keep us under, well, you can't go to that college because we can't afford it, son. And I know you need that great education. You're so brilliant. You're so smart, but we just can't afford it. How is that progress? Can anyone out there tell me how that is progress? If a genius, let's just say, because to me, all children are geniuses and we teach them to be stupid. We dumb them down. And it's not a school system's responsibility, it's the parents' responsibility to make quality people. If you're gonna let the school, if you lead yourself to believe that the school system is going to give you quality human beings, you've got to be kidding me. And then you, at the same time, that same person is going to think, well, it's the system's fault. It has nothing to do with me. Everything to do with you. Your responsibility as a parent. It's your number one responsibility in life, not to balance a checkbook. It's your number one priority to make sure you produce quality, better than you human beings, because that's what changes the world. It's not anything else. There's no technology. There's no alien intervention coming in and genetically altering us to make us slaves. And no, I'm sorry. Keep being distracted. This all comes down to you right now. Okay, not tomorrow, not next week. It's right now. And whether you know it or not, there's millions of us already going. Millions of us, and you'll either join us by willful, intent, or you'll wake up yourself and you'll be like, holy crap, I'm late, and we'll welcome you right on in, because it's not something that's going to be handed to you on a silver platter. It's not something it's something that it comes from within you, and you will claim it. Every single one of us, and it's one at a time, and it's well underway. Been underway for a long time. I can take you back to 1970s, 60s, and I can show you people that were describing this very thing and talking on radios and making cassette tapes to be mailed out from PO boxes, and they were trying like hell to get it out, and it's slowly now to the point where people all over the world are doing it. Millions of people are trying to get this information out, and some on different levels. But the next phase, the next key to this is what I'm talking about: jurisdictions, law. Learn your power, learn your humanity. It's a legal description of you is in there, and you have to find it and identify with it. And then once you identify with it, never let it go. And that's where people like me are going, right? That's what we have to do, because that's the keys to the castle comes from you understanding yourself, correcting your position, correcting your association, correcting, and they have all different terms for it, but correcting your status. And then once you correct your status, you make the next choice, because each phase is a distinct decision. It's not something to take, oh, I'm just going to do this, to do this. Oh, this is what they say. Don't do this, do this. No, it's every step of the way is distinctive, calculated decision to make. But if I was to tell you at the end of that road, within step one, as once step one is completed of correction of status, if I was to tell you, you would never have to work a day in your life to pay another bill. Okay, at first people are going to go, what? All kinds of thinking. But you were never designed. In fact, you're not paying a bill now. You're exchanging a digital credit screen digit or a slip of paper with it's a promise to pay using a fictitious value that comes from within your own mind, because that's the only value that's there. You're not paying anything now. That's the thing, right? You think you are. You paid rent on Monopoly is the same concept of you paying every bill that you can think of, your cell phone bill, your telephone bill. It's paying a fictitious using a fiction. You're paying a fiction to pay to, with the fiction. It's a fiction all the way around. Okay, so again, keeping it simple, the value is a man-made construct. If I have a group of men that say this pile of wheat is worth this, and I can take a pile of men over there, a bunch of men over there, and they're going to say a pile of wheat is worth that, the value between the two is completely made up. It's a negotiated, calculated, somewhat hypothecated fiction. Need I say more? An ounce of gold is worth X amount of dollars. You don't think somebody's just sitting there making that shit up? It's worth nothing. An ounce of gold, 10,000 billion pounds of gold is worth nothing. And it's even worth less than nothing when you're using an IOU to calculate the value. An IOU, a debt note, a Federal Reserve debt note is less than nothing when you get down to it, right? It's a fictitious, calculated, algorithmic bullshit is what it is, right? And an ounce of gold supposedly has the gold is just a piece of metal. It has no value whatsoever except for a group of people that's not you that turns around and calculates out, oh yeah, we'll tell them it's worth this. And in fact, we're going to tell them it's worth this fictitious paper that is a check that's actually a debt that they'll believe is money. And yeah. Ground. It affects everybody today on this aspect, which I just described about 1,000 of them, but nonetheless, at your gas pump. At the gas pump, you go in and one day it's $2.19, the next day it's $2.29. 3 days later it's $2.39, the next day it's $1.99. The next 2 weeks later it's $3.69, the next day it's $1.97. Okay, this is all made up. And people will say, oh no, it has algorithmic calculations of the amount of oil supply on hand at the time and all this. No, it's not. That's what they want you to think it is, but it's a group of people behind a board that took their strategic calculations and algorithmic calculations on this particular location, that particular location, this refinery, that refinery. They have all their own stuff, and they say today we're going to make it this. And I literally mean after they have their coffee, they calculate that stuff out. It's proven fact. We already know that. It's old school stuff. If you have any questions, you can go to get a teaser on it. Is the energy non-crisis, right? But we won't go into any of that stuff right now. But it's again it affects everybody on a microcosmic scale on things that they can't even contemplate right now. Some people can, most people can't. I don't want to say most people. It's just it's growing rapidly, but again, it's in the growing stage. We're getting there, right? But anyway, on the jurisdiction thing, I mean, it's something that I'm going to probably have to kind of hit on occasionally or off and on some of these things because it's a very broad concept and we have to kind of get our heads around it. What I do want to do is there's certain aspects that one important thing that I wanted to bring up in particular, technology side. There's and this is going to sound completely science fiction, and I want it to, but I want people to understand what we're dealing with, and the stuff they're having you pay attention to on technology side is kind of a distraction on what's really going on. But to kind of give it a little bit of a teaser, if you can see my screen, I'm hoping you can. It's a breakthrough device, heals organs with a single touch. Device instantly delivers new DNA and RNA into living cells, skin cells, to change their function. So they can basically, and this is Science News, Science Daily News, great place to go They're global warming supporters, but hey, there are other articles. They have a ton of stuff on good stuff, and we'll go over some of those. But this device, and there's a picture of it, is a chip. Okay, they stimulate this. See, they got a positive wire going to the skin, and then they have a negative wire going over to stimulate the chip. And underneath this little jelly thing is a chip. And that chip within seconds triggers the body to start it. All it's doing is sending a signal to the stem cells, and the stem cells start operating. And this is what they're showing you now is elementary school to what they actually already have, which we'll go into some of that as we go too. But just for an elementary little teaser on technology, this little computer chip will trigger your body to heal itself, right? Or they can have other cells change and alter just by sending through through that little chip, and the current is added. That signal will go into its transfection, right there, nanotransfection. Nanotechnologies, ladies and gentlemen. You have quantum computing, you have nanotechnology that most people, I'm going to say most generally don't contemplate or even touch on, this nanotechnology. You got the DNA, cloning, and that type of thing that's all out there. But the missing little pieces that most people need to take into consideration are things that I'm going to try to bring up, are certain aspects that they're having you pay attention to through mind control media, is diverting you from other things that are just as important, if not more important, somewhere else. But again, that's where we gotta step by step. But that's one little thing, and I'll have a link down at the bottom so you can see it. Really interesting. Researchers have developed a device that can switch cell function to rescue failing body function with a single touch. This technology, known as tissue nanotranslocation (TNT), injects genetic code into skin cells, turning those skin cells into other types of cells required for treating disease conditions. Right? And I'm going to put another one up for you, but I'm going to show you from scratch how I find this. Well, not how I find it, but if you ever want to start trying to do this stuff. All right, so I'm going to use microchip stimulate healing. All right, that's already good. Okay, heal wounds and nerves. All right, here's one independent, and I'm just gonna, this is the top one on the thing. Right, so breakthrough microchip technology helps heal wounds, nerves, and organ damage. Revolutionary technology. It's not revolutionary. I'm telling you it is, but uses microchips to inject genetic code into the body cells, transforming them into other types. It's the same article. Gives you a little bit different perspective. Okay. There's one in particular I'm looking for. I think that's not a YouTube. Regenerative medicine breakthrough. Can a small chip heal entire organs? I think this is the same thing. The end organs may soon be healed and simply touched with a small chip. The Ohio State University. I think this is a little different one. But that's something to kind of take a look at. And I'll put a link down at the bottom. In fact, they kind of have a nice little video here to show you. That's a little, kind of interesting tidbit to play with. Oh, here's another thing. Sorry, I went off on a tangent on the technology side, but I wanted to kind of go over this. And that's a way, goes back to the discussion of a few minutes ago about how this affects our lives, all right? There's a graphic on the internet. It's Google. And I guess I'll put a link if I need to. But this graphic goes over how the Fed creates the fictitious, what you call money, um, or basically writes checks and hands them to you, and you believe they're money, um, and that's a check promised to pay you later. But anyway, and they're going to give you this debt now. But how they actually create the money in a very basic, simple, try to get people to kind of step by step understand how this is done. All right, you go to any consultant or any financial expert, you're going to ask him how money is created. He's going to say, well, the Federal Reserve buys bonds at the front window and then sells those bonds internationally out the back window. And out of that, is they print money for credit, which in so on and so forth. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make on this one, I don't want to go into all the details of the latter, but the important detail here is this: the bond seller, okay, where these bonds come from, is your person or you, your, and what is you, right? Your natural resources calculated in that are shared nationally amongst all the public. I've been paying for this whole time, but anyway, all those assets and your copyrighted name, which is your given name freely from your parents to you, okay, that was registered, which the registrar owns the registry. So you registered that kid's name, and they took that identification and they created a bonding instrument or a construction contract is what it's kind of like it's a, it's almost like, I like to kind of put it as, and some might argue with me on this, but it's minor details. But at the same time, it has significant effect. But it's almost like a bonding instrument and a construction contract at the same time. It's kind of a, what do you call it, a chimera. What I mean by that is it functions in both ways. A construction contract can be added to or taken away from, and so therefore they can add more bonds and more things as we go along. You can add more things to it and create another stream, if you will. And a bonding instrument is a taking something of value, creating a piece of paper saying it has value, and then calculating it out, putting it in contract form. Everybody signs off, and that piece of paper has a fictitious value to it. That's the bonding instrument. Okay, that would be, most people would say, is your birth record, but the birth record is actually just the contract or the agreement that your parents made that they're going to allow this federal system to use your this fictitious name and create money out of it with its inheritance that it doesn't know it has, right? That the living entity has no idea that they have a calculatable value by birth, from birth, and that's what they're going after in order to create a money, the illusion of money, and the front end, right, or the back end, depending on which way you're coming from. So the bond seller is your parents or your, once they create the record and the records company that's actually sending that in, the records department sending that in and all that other stuff, and it's behind the scenes stuff. They're the being constituted as the sellers, which in all actuality is you and your parents. Sell that bond to the Fed. The Fed buys it up. They create electronic funds out of that, and distributes that out to your local bank, right? Then those funds, calculated digits on a screen, and some a little bit of cash or paper money, makes the funds available to you to use, and the whole time they're charging you interest for this whole concept, all based on fiction of your personal value. So you are the creditor in this scenario. You are providing the credit, a future generation of wealth, to the Federal Reserve without you knowing there's an entity in between you to keep that off of you. And they sell that and out to the world, and the world buys up it buys up the national debt, buys up the debt. I mean, China buys the debt. I mean, you've heard these stories. We can actually pull up some articles on it. Okay, that's what they're buying. They're buying your future wealth. or your inherent wealth. Okay, so when people say the point I wanted to make on this one is the when people say they create money out of thin air, it's not in their view. From their view, you sold yourself. Well, your parents sold yourself, and you never claimed your bond, your encapsulated wealth. You never claimed it. So they're freely using it to create more and more money in your name, even though it's done in fraud. You're not claiming it back. You're not resisting it. You're not saying, hey, I want my payment in full now, please, in actual money, which would be sad to say, which would be gold or silver. But in this case, we're looking at a calculable silver dollar, American dollar would be calculated in silver gold, is what they owe us back. Okay, and so that's what this whole thing is all about. But anyway, we'll go to keep it simple. My main point is this: you, us, are the creditor. The bank is the debtor. It can't be any other way. Without you, none of this thing is possible. No work is possible. What you call work. No creation is possible. No, nothing is possible without your willing participation. They monetized it, calculated it, took all your resources that you don't know that are yours to share equally with everyone else, and your calculatable future growth, consumption, and your production estimated on your category of, broke down into algorithmic calculations as far as what you are, race, color, creed, upbringing, this, that, and the other, geographical location, everything's calculated in to figure out, okay, it's going to be about approximately $10 million or whatever he's going to generate over time. And they have to have that currency system work. They have to create more money as they go forward every second, every bill second, they have to create more money, okay, or what we call money, which is just later. Every single dollar on paper and every single digit on a screen is a promise to pay you later. By them, not you, by them. Okay. So my main point to this is saying is to drive home is you are the creditor that needs to claim your bond. Correcting your status is this exact process for you to create yourself. A person is someone in fiction, is an alteration of you. It's a Babylonian magic trick to trick you into thinking you're something that you're not. It's in your mind. It's a mind. That's all magic is taking something that is plain and simple and making it seem magical, right? It's simple process that it needs to be explained. Okay? You are not your person. Your person is a legal category with your name on it. And then your name is the name that was given to you by your parents when you were born that you had no say over, right? It was given to you. Your first birthright was your name, and that your birthright was attached to that. Your worth that you don't have. When I say this, people think that, well, I don't own anything. I don't have any value besides. No, you have a national bank, a national store of wealth that's in under the ground and very future creation of all assets that the nation has. That's land, public property, all that stuff is all yours, right? That's in your buildings, your all the it's the stuff that they use, their cars, the cop cars, all that stuff is all credits based on your value. That's how they get it, right? That's how they have these in this system. They are using you 1,000 times over without you knowing it. They're sucking the substance out of you through money and the control and issuance of money. Okay. And so we have to get ourselves out of that, we have to correct our status. And that's where we're going forward, is we're going to, and once I'm satisfied that we've got a pretty good idea of how this jurisdiction things work, this is the next step. And I'm going to try to walk people into the best avenues to correct your status and start claiming what is yours, because it's right there for you to grab, but we won't go into the details of that on this particular one. Car, did you have any questions on that part?
On the jurisdictions,
On the issuance, how they make money out of the bonds and stuff, where they buy it to the front window. Did you hear my discussion on that?
yes, I heard it. If I had to
No.
ask a question, it would be what is the role that the Federal Reserve and these banks play in sustaining the system?
Their role is to um, look at the Federal Reserve's. Their function is kind of like a management company of a foreclosure. In all reality, so they're basically what they're doing is they're taking substance that anything of possible resource that can be calculated, that we can see, or future perspectives of what can be seen, and calculating it down and liquidating that out to other banks, the bigger banks that are above them. That would be the international monetary funds and this, that, and the other, in order for them to keep leveraging in another system, and so on and so on. So the banks function, that would be like the Federal Reserve Bank, is to buy up the bonds, create more bonds, and make sure that I believe I'm not going to go into the functions and all the little entities that do what they do, but it's basically they're the foreclosure company. Them and their enforcement arm is the IRS. They're the debt management company, corporation that does all that, creates the money, buys up the resources, which you were considered a resource. They had to reclassify you legally, but we'll go into that later. But they, again, they're there to manage the bankruptcies, the most current one. And then as they go, they were planning on, or they are planning on going into the next one. But hopefully this will be subverted. But I mean, it's pretty far down the track at this point. I honestly think it's so far down the track that there's, even by correcting it properly. And again, my mindset is to eliminate money as we go down the road. But at first, we have to put the brakes on of the parasites, and cut their food source off. And then with that, we'll be able to get a foothold and then continue forward with, what the hell are we kidding ourselves? You're never going to create a money system that will not be corrupted. You'll never do it. There is not one soul on this planet, or ever to come on this planet, that will be able to create a money system that won't be corrupted. And then we're supposed to suffer. Now, all known history, there's been suffering in one form or another, or all at once. In some cases, it's just everything is just nothing but suffering. But there's never been a system that's ever worked, because it's bullshit. It's a lie. You can't make a lie work. It'll buy some time, but eventually the lie's exposed. And again, you do it again and again, and we're going to get it right next time. No, we're not. It ain't going to happen. We have to get it through to ourselves. The definition of insanity, the whole simple thing, the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. There you have it, prime case. There is no way you'll ever create a monetary system that won't be corrupted, no matter how you do it. You can, let's use an example that some people might get is, the only way you could ever have a monetary system that would work is if Jesus is the embodiment of God, was here on the planet running. If that ain't gonna happen, we don't want it. Okay, and even if they said, hey, if Jesus, embodiment of God, came down and said, hey, we're gonna have a money system, I question who he was as God. Having a money system you can never have the ultimate expression of man's natural course. Can't have it. Will not have it. We can't have it. We're getting there. We're getting there. But anyway, with that being said, I think we've gone for quite a while actually. The links for anybody that if we tickled some nerve or tickled some ideas on some people, then I'll have the links at the bottom for my book. I'd like people to try to check out my website. Um, I'll have a link down at the bottom. Right now, it's a WordPress website, but it's good. I enjoy using it. I'm not very good at it, but at least it's starting. But it's youwalkonwater.wordpress.com. Stop by, take a look. A link to my book will be in the description, but it's also on my website as well. Um, I'd like to thank for anybody that might have been listening or might be listening in the future. And as I go forward, I'm going to be going after and putting this stuff out as soon as I can learn how to do this efficiently and properly. Or just along the way, I'm just going to be trying like heck. Carter, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
I would like to just say that I'm glad that I'm here with you and here to experience the beginning of your channel and your first videos that you're coming out with, and I'm glad that you had me on today. And one thing I'd just like to say to the viewer would be just we are all on our own path, and I said this before, but we're all on our own path, and there's people out there that are trying to figure out the same things, that are, I like to say, on the same wavelength. But we need to network together. We've got to start. And we're already taking action, but we've got to continue and keep moving forward. So thanks for having me on, Dave.
I appreciate you coming, Carter. And our next one, I'll probably do a post, do my Facebook. I'll have links at the bottom as well on that, and I'll publish it and see if we can get some listeners or people that might have some questions, and it might kind of help us guide where we're going. And as long as I get again the first sections of my stuff, I'd like to really focus in on my stuff and how we can take advantage and take action locally. That will be solutions. I want to try to provide a spot for solutions, not just a place telling you something that's already happened. I want to try to get and create the change from grassroots, the real grassroots, from the ground up. But I appreciate everybody that will listen to this at some point. And again, stop by my channel if you get a chance. Check out some of my links, and there'll be more to come. I appreciate your time, and you'll be hearing from me again, I'm sure. Have a good day.